Hello, Lovelace, and welcome to today's wider curriculum lesson, continuing our map work, and in particular, focusing on contour lines again. We're going to recap a little bit on what we looked at last lesson, check in on your the work you did to see how well you match those contour lines with the hills before moving on to today's challenge. So first of all, just a reminder, remember, I said the ground around us is at different heights, especially if you go up into the hills or the mountains. The land changes height quite rapidly. So here we have a 3D image of a couple of hills, and everywhere that's got the same height, so in this case 40 meters above sea level, you could, if you chose to, you could sort of draw a line matching all those points that are 40 meters above sea level. But then if you sort of squash that down so it's flat, this is what it would look like. So that little circle in the very center is the peak of the hill, but then the line with the 40 in it shows us this part of the hill here, where all the land around that section there is 40 meters. Then if we come down the mountain a little bit, all the land around here is 30 meters, and we show that on our two-dimensional map there, and so on as we work our way down. Now throughout the map, the lines are closer or further away to the next one. They're not perfect circles. And where the contours are closer, where the lines are closer, that means that we've got from one height to the next quicker. So it's a steeper part of the hill. Where there is a big gap between the two lines, it means it's taken us longer to get from that height to the next height. So it's a lot shallower. Okay, so if you were climbing this hill, you might avoid this side because all the lines are quite close. So that must be the steep side. You might come around here and go this way where all the gaps are wider. So that slope must be shallower. It must be less steep and probably easier to walk up. Okay, so mountaineers and climbers and hikers will use that information to decide which is going to be the best route, the easiest route to get to the top. Now, we also looked at this mountain map of contours just to highlight this idea of really, really close together lines meant that they were a lot steeper, that we were climbing much quicker. And further away, it meant that slope was less steep. Okay, so I won't spend any more time on that one. I think we've talked about it enough. This was your homework, or this was your challenge for home. Not really homework, it's home learning. But anyway, I asked you to match the hills to the contours. How did you get on? If you've got the sheet in front of you, grab it now, and let's see how you got on. So, the first one, we've got two hills, so our contours need to have two ovals in them, two peaks, but one is higher than the other. So this first one, the left-hand side, is going to have more contours. Can we find a two-peak where there's more contours on the left than on the right? Well, it's 1E, so it's this one. So it's got its two peaks, but the one on the left has got more contour lines, which means it's going higher into the air. 2, we've got two peaks, but they're both the same height, so they should have the same number of contours to building them. The 2 is I, down here. Okay, they're not very high peaks. There's only a very shallow valley in between. So here you've got your two peaks, both of the same height, but there's not too many contour lines there because they're not going very high. 3, we've got one peak, but it's really, really shallow. It's not a steep peak at all, so there's not going to be a lot of contours there at all. So 3 is A. You can see it's very, very steep initially. So the outside ones, for the next one, is really, really close because it's very steep on the front edge. And then it's really gradual, so big gaps between the edge there and the top, and just the one peak. 4, 3 peaks. Now, the middle one is going to have more contours because the middle one is higher. So which one matches that? 4 is F. 3 peaks with the middle one with the extra contour because it goes that little bit higher. Number 5, 2 peaks, but quite a shallow valley in the middle. So they're not going to be too high, not too many contours here. The 5 is G. So the whole hill is quite high. We've got a few contours there and it's quite steep. But then when we reach the top, the 2 peaks are not much higher than the valley. Okay, so 5 is G. 6, 1 shallow peak. 6 is H. There we go. Nice and spaced out because it's just a gradual climb up to the top of a single peak. 7, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 peaks. The second one is the highest one. So the second one has the most contours. 7 is B. We can see 1, 2, 3, 4 peaks. And that second one is just that little bit higher. Okay, so 7 is B. 8, 3 peaks, but it's the outside 2 that have more contours. So 8 is J. The inside one has got fewer contours than the outside 2, so they go a little bit higher. 9, another 4 peaks, and it's 2 on the right that are that little bit higher. So 9 is C. Okay, so we've got a little peak there, and then the 2 on the right go a little bit higher before they peak. And then finally, 10 is whatever's left. But let's see if it matches. 10, a large gradual peak on the left and a small one on the right is D. And that's exactly what it is. Quite widely spaced contours. So a much higher peak on the left, smaller peak on the right, fewer contours. So it doesn't go as high. There are your answers. Really, really well done if you got all of those. Great job. Now, here are 5 contour maps of hills. I want you to actually draw the hill. So I'm not giving you the shape of the hill this time. You're going to look at the contours and see if you can decide what that hill would look like. Okay? We're going to work through them, but I want you to pause the video now and have a go at drawing those 5 hills. Look at the contours. Look at how many peaks there are. Look at where the peak is on the hill and see if you can decide what those hills will look like. Okay, so pause the video and have a go at drawing those 5 hills. Okay, are you all done? Right, let's have a check. Right, number 1, we can see that there's a nice gradual climb and then we've got 2 peaks. So number 1 is going to look something like that. If you've got a 2-peak hill, then you can give yourself the tick. Well done. Right, number 2, we've just got the 1 peak and quite wide contours, big gaps in between. So it's a very gradual slope. So there you go. Gradual slope up to a single peak and then a nice slope down the other side. Number 3, now the peak is over here on the right-hand side. So we go quite a gradual slope up the left, but on the right-hand side, look how tight those contours are. So that's really, really steep on the right side. It's going to look something like that, a nice gradual climb up to our peak, and then almost a vertical drop off. It's almost like a cliff because those contours are really tightly packed. Number 4, big gaps. So it's not a steep hill, a little bit of a steep climb there, and then a big flat top. It doesn't have a little peak like a lot of these. It doesn't grow at all after that big bit. So it looks like it's got a bit of a flat top. And there it is. So it climbs up on that side. The contours are a bit closer on that side than that side, which is why it's a shallower climb there. But then we've got that flat top. And finally, we've got 3 peaks, but not very many contours at all. So this is not a high one. This is not a tall hill at all. But it has got 3 little peaks on it. So something like that. 3 peaks, but not much of a climb at all, not very high at all. How did you get on? Did you get all 5 of those, or were all 5 similar to mine? If you have, really, really well done. Okay. Now, one final little thing for today. In school, in our breakout area, I have put a very large version of this map, so you can have a really close look at the area where you live. This map covers all the area around school. And just for now, I thought I'd challenge you with 3 questions. First of all, can you find TLAP? Can you find school? Now, a little warning. I know up to now we've talked about the OS symbol for school being SCH. They do have a second one, and because we're an academy and we're linked to the Langley Academy, then they actually use the symbol ACAD for academy. So let's see if you can work out where school is. Also on that map, can you work out roughly where you live? Now, some of you might not be on that map. Some of you might have to travel a little bit further. But if you are on that map, can you work out roughly where you are, where you live? And finally, to tie in with today's lesson, can you find the contour lines on the map and see if you can work out roughly how high Slough is above sea level? So roughly how many meters above sea level is Slough? Okay. I will leave you with that one. You can pause and give yourself time to have a closer look at that map. But for now, that's the end of today. Take care of yourselves, look after those around you, and I will see you very, very soon.